Captain V from All Pro. The other day, I spoke about the Fluke spoon, our badonkadonk spoon. And I got a few people message me regarding other lures and why we use these other rigs and lures and so forth for Fluke. I explained that the Fluke spoon is used in fast-moving water and a fast drift. When it comes down to it, I want everyone to remember this because this is really the key. Presentation, bait presentation, action and presentation will equal bites, which eventually will equal hookups and fish. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. So whatever setup you're using, always think about how you're going to improve that presentation. Because if you improve that presentation, and again, when I speak about presentation, it's bait presentation. How does it look to the fish that you're targeting, the species that you're targeting? So with that in mind, I want to go over a couple of setups and why you may want to use them in certain situations. Now, first, a very simple setup, and you can respond if you've experienced this, is your high-low. Now, a lot of people will use like a bucktail or a ball jig on the bottom of their high-low, and they'll use like a teaser on top, and that bottom jig is basically the weight to get it down. Okay, that's the reality of it is, right? I mean, you're using that weight to get that rig down into the strike zone area, right? Which is, in this case, we're targeting Fluke. It's going to be on the bottom. I think a lot of people, most people, will probably experience that when they do catch a fish on that type of setup, it's on that top hook. It's not on the bottom hook. It's not on that fancy bucktail. It's not on that pretty painted bucktail with the big eyes, with the deer hair or the silicone skirting. It's on that teaser or plain hook with the spearing or squid strip or fluke belly, whatever it may be, the gulp that's on that top hook. Why is that? Presentation. Okay? Now, but why not? The fluke is on the bottom. That ball jig is on the bottom. That bucktail is on the bottom. Why are they hitting the one up on top? Again, presentation. You know, when you're working that bucktail, that lighter rig, that lighter teaser is getting more action. It's looking more appetizing and appeasing, more natural to the fluke. Besides the fact that the eyes of the fluke are on top here and they're kind of looking up this way. When you're working that ball jig or that bucktail on the bottom, unless you really are a good, experienced fisherman who has a very good sense of what they're doing, you don't get enough action and presentation out of that heavier, weighted jig on the bottom. You just don't. The average guy that just goes fishing on the weekends or so forth doesn't properly use it. And therefore, they're going to get their hits on top. Now, your Sharpies, they'll catch them on the bottom. Why? Because they are presenting it properly. They're moving it properly. They also know a lot about line weight. Again, goes back into presentation. So, with that being said, there's a couple of different rigs that I like to use in different situations. So, for instance, here's your typical high-low rig, okay? I like this particular rig with the Mylar in slow-moving drifts. I like this particular rig in deeper water, ocean water, areas of the bay, but mostly on my reefs and off my wrecks in the ocean, but on a slower drift. I like it because it's light, and I get a lot of action with it. Now, I'm not usually a big fan, people who fish with me, with two hooks. I prefer one hook. But that's me, and from what I see, the one hook seems to produce better for me. And it may be because of the way that I'm presenting it or my technique. But a lot of people like this. Now, I do not like this rig on a fast moving drift because I don't get the right action and it gets scoped out. And if you look at this like this, I don't want this looking like this because the fish is following it behind here, okay? He's behind here, this fish. So the first thing he sees when you're scoping out is the weight. And then you have this, and then you have this one way up there. Not a big fan on this if it's not a lazy drift. Lazy drifts, I like it because I get a lot of action. I can bounce it, super stuff. However, if that drift is moving a little bit, maybe not to the point where you got to go to a fluke spoon, but moving a bit, I just don't like it because I don't think I'm getting the right presentation. So I like using something like this. Now, working this with a Mylar is just as good, maybe even better, because I do like light. But this here, a single hook, when you have I hate to generalize, but like an average drift, like you're moving, a mile per hour, 1.2 miles per hour, something like that, that's a nice drift. I like something like this because even if you scope it out, it's set lower. You're not forcing that fish to come up really high. And if you do scope a little bit, again, it's right in that strike zone area. So for the most part, this is what I would be fishing with. I like the single hook. I like the hoochie skirt. I'm not anti-hoochie skirt. I do like the Mylar as well. Again, it's all because of presentation and being light and working it. I'm not anti by any means teasers on top. I like them. We make some really nice ones. We make the Pro Teaser, which is this one here. We also make the Feather Pro Teaser, which is a larger profile teaser here. Really nice. We use this for striped bass above our spoons. Again, why? Presentation and action. And the bass crush these. But the Fluke love them too if you present them right. Before you even put any rig on your line, and I know this is hard for people to comprehend, especially old timers or people who've been fishing a certain way for many, many years, is your line weight. A lot of us, our go-to weight on our braid is 30 pounds. And you're going to find that you will start getting more and more bites when you start dropping that line down, because lighter you can get that line. And the more you become accustomed in using your drag and using lighter setups, more action you're going to be able to produce, which is going to give you a better presentation, which equals bites, kind of circling back to the first thing I said when we started the video. There's another setup that actually consists of some weight, which is an absolutely killer setup. Now, this next setup I'm going to show you is something that probably one of the best setups in the bay. And I know that some guys are going to be like, you're out of your mind, but I'm not. And some real sharpers, okay, this is what they use. And they crush them. And that are these little 1/4 ounce to 3/8 of an ounce jig heads. Now, we actually are coming out in 2020. I'm so impressed about how these work. We're coming out with our own line. We made our own mold. I want to change them up a little bit. We made something that has a very similar head as this because I like this head. It's a kind of a wobbly head. But instead of this here, we just went with a wire hook that would be able to hold on strip bait because I like working these very light with a strip bait, but at the same time, you can also put like a plastic on it. The Worm Bar makes some really great plastics that you could use. Gulp is a good one. Q8's another good one. That we like to use. So therefore, I put just a single hook on ours. That's going to come out in 27. But they have the very similar wobbly head here like this because I like movement. But what's really great about this is that you don't use a bank sinker. You're not using a big heavy weight or a 1 ounce or 2 ounce bucktail or something like that. You're going with like kind of an even distribution of weight. And you go with one high and one low, and they're usually tight on the line. And this is where that light line that I'm talking about, using 15-pound braid, with a 20-pound, leader, over something that's 30 pounds. Listen, there's people still fish for Fluke with 50 pounds. I mean, I get them to come into the shop all the time, put 50 pounds on my, and I'm like, well, fish are you targeting? Fluke. I'm like, what are you, like, pulling up a wreck? What are you using it for? But I understand this is the way they've been doing it for years and years. But it's time that we make adjustments if you're looking to improve your game and get more strikes. And that is something like this. This gets your weight down, gets your rig down to where you need to be. However, you can't do this with 30-pound braid and a 30-pound leader. You have to bring it down to 15 pounds, 20 pounds minimum. Listen, if you have the confidence and know, you have to have the confidence. You have to have the right rod. You have to have a very sensitive rod. The All-Star rod's an excellent rod, but there's other really good rods out there that are real sensitive, soft. These carbon fiber rods, we make a solid carbon fiber rod, but there's hollow carbon fiber rods that are really sensitive, really good for stuff like this. And you will see, you will get a tremendous amount of action with these because they're light. And you'll be able to get them down and work them. And the response is overwhelming, okay, compared to someone else. When I'm running a charter and I have someone, hey, I'll give you a for instance. I'm going to throw out a name, John Schmall. John Schmall, he's like the fish reaper, right? The Fluke reaper, this guy. And he fishes a very similar setup. He uses like little tiny ball jigs. I kind of like these. I don't think John would, be anti these. He goes with a ball jig that he makes, and he will outfish you. He will outfish you, and you'll use all this fancy stuff, this high, low, blah, blah, blah. And John will go with very lightweight, very light braid, and he has this, he has this rod, which is like, it's like a yellow rod. It looks like it was made in the 20s or something like that, but it's like a banana thing. It's like, it's crazy, like no backbone at all on type of thing. But the action this man gets out of working these, and he flips it out and bum, 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 bum. And these things dance, and guess what? He crushes them. So the next time you're out on the water, okay? Next time you're out on the water, think about action, presentation, okay? And get hooked up. Captain V, hope I helped you a little bit. Now let's get fishing.